And welcome in to another episode of Too Many Points on the Tell Me More podcast. I'm your host, Mac Moore, here again with Shane Jackson. No Bobby because he's sleeping or ignoring me. I haven't decided which one yet, but doesn't matter. Shane was the only guest I really wanted, so screw you, Bobby. And Shane, how's it going this morning?
It's going great. I wanted Bobby. I think he might be a genius after last week. Curtis Samuel scored that second touchdown on Thursday night, and I was convinced that Bobby's the smartest person on earth. So I don't know how he ended up doing in those hypothetical sports bets, but I thought he was a genius from the start.
There was also a bet you guys didn't finish making, but you guys just said where you would stand on it. So we had the 3+ touchdowns for the Seahawks versus +4 for the 49ers. I think at the end, they won by 10. So
10, yeah. I think it wasn't 3 touchdowns, right? Was it?
No.
Okay. I was like, that's 21 points last time I checked.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if in the middle. So if you got 49ers +4,
mm-hmm.
So that would cut into the lead, right? So it's it'd be like a 6-point differential. Because you weren't taking the even money on it.
No.
Yeah,
you're doing a lot of math in your head.
I'm trying. I'm not doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like he's taken 3 touchdowns, so he's 11 off. You were 6 off. So you were closer on that. But that really should have. That was supposed to be the fillet of fish bet of the week, and Bobby tricked us at the end, and instead threw it to your team, the Ravens, going up against the Steelers. Which that's how we'll open the show. That's what we'll jump into. I love jumping into people's pain as the first thing. It gets the real raw emotions, and that's what people come here for. That's why they listen to this podcast. So luckily my Chiefs are on the good side right now, and we won't talk about KU. So we'll just let you be upset right now with your Ravens. How do you feel about that game? That was one where they're in it at the end. So I hate this the way people talk about football, where once you lose by 1 score to an undefeated team, now the Ravens are done. They're trash, whatever. And it's like they should have won the game. Like I don't know how your takeaway is that they're not good enough, but that was an interesting one down stretch. Obviously, turnovers really killed the Ravens there in that game. How'd you feel about your team there?
Well, I'm sporting my Hollywood Brown shirt, and he's probably the one more upset than me. Deleting a tweet that was very cryptic, but no, it was obviously disappointing. I felt like the Ravens, at least in the first half plus, probably should have been up by a lot more, and I felt like Lamar's play let the Steelers hang around. Lamar wasn't good. I'm the biggest Lamar Jackson supporter there is, and I'll admit he just wasn't good, and it has nothing to do with the Steelers or the defenses are figuring him out. A lot of the mistakes were him. He threw 2 interceptions, fumbled another time. If that doesn't happen, then the Ravens are probably in better position late in the game, but they still had a chance late in the game. They were down, they scored the go-ahead touchdown, and then the defense doesn't come with the stop. And then the Ravens still had a chance and then didn't convert down the stretch either. So I don't know. It was very disappointing, but it's a rivalry game for a reason. That's how it happens with the Steelers and Ravens. It's close like that for some reason, even if it looks like the two teams aren't really playing the same game early on like it did. The Ravens ran all over the Steelers in that game. It is disappointing, but I always thought the Steelers were good, and I still think that, and I'm not too concerned about this loss. I agree. I think the hot take artists will come out and say, defense has figured out Lamar. Lamar can't win big games, and they'll just ignore all the big wins he had last year, and they'll ignore the fact that a lot of the mistakes he made on Sunday were his fault, not some complicated defensive scheme. So they bounced back with the Colts this week. I think they're 2.5-point favorites. I think they might not be getting enough respect after this loss in the Vegas odds. So I'm perfectly fine going back to the Ravens, and I'm not losing faith. They get a rematch with the Steelers on Thanksgiving, and we'll see what happens then. But going into this year, I expected regression with the Ravens, and it doesn't mean they're not going to Super Bowl contender. It just means maybe they're not going to peak midway through the season like they did last year.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think it's so hard to talk about Lamar Jackson because that conversation has been ruined from the moment he's entering the draft. And it's taken so far in one direction that anytime there is a criticism, like, you have to be careful because you want to evaluate him the same way you would another quarterback. you also know there's too many people that are going to jump on the bandwagon of hate when he does bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you want to separate yourself from them, but it's nearly impossible. And with Lamar, it's really tough because, right now we're in a league where you can compare it to the top quarterbacks. I think, if you look at the list 10 years ago, you have a lot of guys who stay in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's scary watching somebody like Tom Brady back there. You're like, it's not just that he's, potentially the greatest quarterback of all time. It's that he plays a completely different game than you're watching from everybody else. And when you're trying to compare Lamar that way, like that, how much does running matter to win? And then how much does passing? And how much is there a difference? And you can't separate them because they're all one and the same. The ability to throw down the field is improved when you can get one-on-one matchups, when you can get guys open, in a zone, when you have a defense that has to account for the run, particularly a running quarterback who is as lethal as Lamar Jackson. So there are going to be passes that he has that are easier than most other quarterbacks. But that's also true for Josh Allen. It's also true for even Patrick Mahomes with his little duck waddle. Like, there are just a lot of quarterbacks where that happens to be the case. Now you got Justin Herbert out there, who is, basically a super athlete with a cannon on his shoulders. Like, there's just a lot of guys who bring that potential. And so when you're trying to figure out, okay, how much does Lamar being able to read a defense, is that what's holding him back? How much, when you talk about he makes his own mistake, that I don't know if that detracts from where people are criticizing him anyways, which is that it's not even a talent thing. It is, as a quarterback, you have to make the right read at the right time and in extremely important situations. And if you can't do that, and if the only time the Ravens are going to be a lock to win big games is with a lead, that's not going to happen a lot. And your biggest foe is going to be the Chiefs, who big leads mean nothing to them. So it puts you in a tough situation. And that pressure is probably building up on him. That's probably where a lot of the play is we're seeing this year, where now he does have to show, not only can I win games against the average to above average teams, I need to win games against the top teams. And the numbers keep growing that he hasn't done it. I just hate when people start arguing he can't do it. It's not like he's getting blown out in these games,
Yeah.
Like there's no, except for the Chiefs the last two times, just really, and they did it to the entire team. The offense destroyed the Ravens defense, and somehow a Chiefs defense that sometimes doesn't show up kept them in check. Like, those are the only real games. Every other time, there's been a path to victory. They just haven't got there. I'm not willing to start to look at somebody's makeup, whether it's do they have the swagger? Do they have the confidence? And then definitely not the talent, because we know he has the talent. And starting on the foot of, can he throw down the field? He was great at throwing down the field in college. Everybody who brought that into the draft was not watching him play the game of football. Early in this year, he's throwing down the field. Now, it's tough to do at the NFL level consistently and to get your team to win, but he has the arm. He makes the right plays. Now it's just, will he do that in big pressure moments? And right now, the resume isn't looking great, but
I would say
he's so good that, give him time.
Some of that analysis that you'll hear is maybe poor judgment in hindsight. I mean, if you go back and look at last year, he beat the Bills, the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Patriots. Those are all objectively big games. And we just like to forget those because he lost a couple of playoff games. He's lost to the Chiefs twice, and now he's lost to his division rival in one of the biggest games they've faced against Steelers. He only faced him once last year. So I don't know. I think some of that is in hindsight. I agree, though, that there's times where it feels like he's pressing, but I think you can make the argument about that with most quarterbacks anyways. I don't know. I'm just not holding this game against him. I think better days are ahead. I think Lamar has proven he's won big games. I don't know. I think there's still an argument to be made about if they can come back from behind and win, but they basically did that with the Steelers. They came back from a deficit late in the game there in the fourth quarter, scored the go-ahead touchdown, and the defense doesn't come up with the stop. So I don't know. If they do come up with a stop, then maybe the narrative's a little bit different the next day. So I'm not ready to buy into that, I guess, logic.
Yeah, and I think this one's all about confidence. Does Lamar Jackson see it the way you see it, where we did what we needed to, and in a football game, even when you do great, it can be a 50-50 contest against another good team. So they didn't get the win, but they did everything they needed to get into place. Now, if you can, avoid the turnovers, you not only win, you probably win handedly. Mm-hmm. So as long as he can view it that way, and that doesn't creep up into the back of his mind the next time he faces another top opponent, then I think there's a lot to build on, and looking at this as a negative for the Ravens. If anything, I have a lot more questions about the Steelers, which I was ready after last week to just be like, all right, I wasn't sure about it. I'm still not sure about Big Ben, but until I see a loss, I don't know if I can, keep questioning them. But now this is a game against a really good team. They end up getting the victory. They stay undefeated, but you see the flaws there, and you see the ability for the Ravens to run the way they did, and you start to look at it like, okay, this is a team that has found a way to stay undefeated, but with a very weak schedule early, and then they have had some pretty good breaks against good teams. Now, that sort of criticism is just like me trying to figure out whether I can even put the Chiefs over them in a power rankings. I wouldn't. I'm going to lean on the side of undefeated, but I've seen people put the Chiefs over them, and that's become a talking point. I don't think that's crazy based on the resume the Steelers have and the way they've won the actual tough games on their schedule. I'm willing to say that it's like you can't knock them down more than one, but I'm willing to say with how good reigning defending champ Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to be mad at anybody for pushing them above the Steelers, because there were definitely some flaws there that they were able to overcome and get the victory over the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm always going to bring up betting odds as much as I can when talking about this league. But if the Chiefs and Steelers were playing on neutral field, the Chiefs would be the favorite. If they were playing in Pittsburgh, Chiefs probably would be the favorite. So, yeah, I think the Chiefs are the number one team in the NFL. And that's who, if I did power rankings, that's who I would put. I think you bring up good points, though. The Steelers, they've been a top 5 defense ever since they brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick last year. And I think they do deserve a ton of credit. Mike Tomlin deserves a ton of credit, but there are flaws, like the Ravens running all over them. And just this, we mentioned it last week, but Big Ben doesn't push the ball down the field. They are a more conservative passing attack in the league. And when it gets to the playoffs and you're relying on a defense and a quarterback who doesn't really threaten you deep and over the top, I mean, how sustainable is that in big games? We'll find out, obviously. We won't find out this week because they play the Cowboys, and there's no learning lessons this week. But down the road, they're going to play bigger games. They're going to play the Ravens yet again. I think there are flaws with this team, but I think there are flaws with every team other than the Chiefs. Yeah, I think you can make.
They lost to the Raiders.
Fair. I still think the Chiefs are amazing, and they're way better than everybody else. So,
as a Chiefs fan, I'm willing to agree with that. So next up is another team that looked a little bit like the Steelers. They were right there on the one of the last undefeateds, and then things have turned just a little bit for them. You got the Packers. Losing isn't a problem. Losing to the Vikings, then you're like, and it's tough because the Vikings have a lot of talent. They also have Kirk Cousins. So when you lose 28-22, now you are in a tight race now with the Bears. And I just want to know right now, are the Packers still the front runners? Would you pick them to win the NFC North?
Oh, yeah, I would. I think, again, this kind of, like we were just talking about, this goes with the Steelers. It's a good team, but it has flaws. And maybe they could have fixed those flaws with some better decisions in the NFL draft, and we aren't as concerned. But when Aaron Rodgers has faced a good defense like the Buccaneers, you've seen warts with this team. And then, obviously losing to the Vikings, although the Vikings are probably better than their record would indicate as well. I don't think I would put the Packers as the front runner in the NFC, but I would put them as the front runner in the NFC North because I don't necessarily believe in the Bears or really anybody else in that division. But yes, there are flaws with this team. And I think Aaron Jones being out, although running backs tend to not matter as much if you talk to the nerds, but I think him being out is a massive change in that offense. And if they had any other receiver other than Devontae Adams, maybe, and maybe Allen Lazard, if he comes back or when he comes back, that makes a big difference in their passing attack. So the Packers are up there, obviously, but just like any other of these really good teams, there are flaws with this team.
All right. And I was going to transition the question to what does the outlook look like for him? Because NFC North, okay, still front runners. The idea that they would be Super Bowl contenders, that they could be the top of the NFC, that's kind of faded. But is there a possibility that they're back there if Aaron Jones is healthy, their wide receiver core is healthy, and it's not just Aaron Rodgers throwing it to these Robert Tonyan and just all these other players that you just throw them in and it looks nice, it looks amazing. You're getting that like Peyton Manning effect of every receiver ever is going to have a reception from Aaron Rodgers. It's also not a great way to consistently win games, particularly when the defense isn't playing well.
Yeah, what was the question? Sorry.
Oh, just would they be front runners if they get those players back?
In the NFC, maybe not. I'm a big fan of the Buccaneers. So maybe I would still have them as the front runner in the NFC, but they're right there. I mean, I don't think there's that big of a gap between the Bucs and the Packers. But I think the Bucs would still be my front runner or my favorite in the NFC. But it'd be worth looking at the odds for the Super Bowl future. I don't have that on me, but I mean, that would be worth looking at that just because I think it could end up being like a 3-4 team race for the NFC, and it depends on who you believe in. And Aaron Rodgers, out of those 4 quarterbacks, maybe you believe in him the most. I don't know. So yeah, I think I would have Tampa Bay as my favorite in front runner in the NFC, but the Packers are probably not far behind. I mean, there's an argument between them and the Seahawks. So.
All right, let's just go running down your list. You gave me ammunition. You gave me a group here of NFL 2020 season predictions. So this will help me figure out. So right now, this was your preseason. You had Saints number 1. I assume that's gonna drop down a little bit.
Yes.
Seahawks number 2. Packers number 3. Cowboys, I guess, which I love that. I assume the 4 is just being a division winner and not like the 4th ranked team.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Vikings at 5, Bucs at 6, Washington football team sliding in to that crazy 7th spot that most of us haven't even adjusted for that. I think you hear experts, their job is to talk to the NFL, and they're still talking as if it's the same playoff format. Like it's crazy how that's going to surprise the hell out of us when we actually get to the playoffs. Like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like some crappy team is going to slide in there. I mean, the winner of the NFC East, obviously, just going to slide in there. But with that group, you high on the Bucs, so you moving them up 6-1. Is that they jumped to the top?
Yeah, I mean, this week's going to be a big game for them with the Saints. I mean, winning division obviously is the big part of if you can get that bye. So yeah, in terms of power rankings, I think I would have the Bucs number 1 right now. Does that mean I feel confident that they're going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC? Maybe not. So.
All right, give me your 2 through 4 in the NFC, and 4 is not the NFC least.
Okay, so I don't have to be an NFC East team. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then it is probably 2 Seahawks, 3 Packers, 4 Saints. I think is how I would do the power rankings in that scenario. Yeah. I with those predictions, which were bad. I was under the impression
pretty solid.
Yeah. I was just saying that I listened to a lot of football podcasts, and everyone had basically the same division winners. And I was like, this isn't how the NFL works. There's teams that come out of nowhere. There's teams that, have a fall off completely without us knowing. And now you throw in the extra playoff spot, it's going to get crazier. So for me, I was trying to be somewhat different with those predictions. I regret picking 2 NFC East teams to make the playoffs immediately. And I regretted picking the Cowboys, as you can see in those predictions. So, but yeah, that was the whole argument about this, is that we expected some teams to surprise us and some teams to fall off. So, and the 7th seed added a whole nother dynamic to the playoffs, as you alluded to.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my mind around who's at the top, because I see the Bucs up there. Technically, Seahawks are still 6-1. And
yeah.
They tried to make some trades. They tried to figure out how can we shore up this defense a little bit. We'll see if any of that pays off as they go along. But at this point, Russell Wilson is playing so much out of his mind that I don't know. I don't think that he needs a defense that is functional for me to move down. Now, part of that is I have not gotten to watch Tampa Bay enough to appreciate what they've been able to do. And
they're on prime time all the time.
I know. Generally, I'm throwing some other stuff together, so they're just kind of in the background. So I was watching more when they were losing, and then once they kind of fixed it, and now they're out here to a 6-2 record. Now I'm like, well, I don't want to watch Tom Brady win. But I'm not ready to just move the Seahawks down. I think I'm going to value the quarterback position enough to say that Russell Wilson, just being a guy who's going to do whatever it takes to win, I'm willing to trust that more so than the idea that Tom Brady is still like not a 43-year-old. And God, look, Bill Belichick is actually the one who is going to lose out in this breakup. Like, it is entirely that Tom Brady went to a team with so many pieces around him. But when I'm trying to figure out who's going to, be able to pull out a really tough playoff game, I'm going to go Russell Wilson. I'm going to right now lean on Russell Wilson is just playing at that level until I see that kind of, fall off a bit. I know he had the 3 interceptions against the Cardinals, but I'm willing to lean on that for a while. And then I think you're right on the other ones. The tough thing for me is when the Packers, it's not good to lose to the Vikings. I'm ready to start moving them down, but hopefully Aaron Jones comes back. I'm mostly wishing for that for my fantasy team. So
Me too.
I'll leave them in place for a bit. It's so tough because none of these teams have separated themselves. Like, you put the Packers up there, you put the Saints. Like, I don't feel like either of those two teams have separated themselves from the Cardinals, the Rams, or the Bears. And that's considering the Bears are helmed by Nick Foles. The Rams are helmed by Jared Goff, being the puppet for Sean McVay. And, like, Cardinals, it's tough because they looked great to start out, then they fell off a cliff, and now they're back on the upswing again. So the NFC is very murky for me. A lot of teams that are really good there, but I can't imagine that all of those teams are going to finish with really great records. There's going to be some regression. I just don't know which team that is. I'm thinking more the Saints is the one that will definitely fall. I think the Packers, they get your players back. I don't think they're coming back from Drew Brees just losing any confidence to throw it more than 15 yards down the field. So that's the only takeaway that I have right now is of those teams. I feel like the Packers have the biggest downward trend, but the Saints have just lucked out to a 5-2 record. I feel like people are just leaving them up there, but with how bad Drew Brees is playing, like, I don't know. I feel like that's going to be the one that right now they're 5, but they made in this in like 9-7 and surprise. That's my mid-season hot take.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael Thomas not being there obviously has made a huge difference. And yes, Drew Brees probably isn't pushing the ball down the field as much, but as we kind of talked about, Big Ben's not doing that a whole lot either. I mean, there's a way for that to work as well. And the Saints they had a roster that was built to win this year. So, like, I'm just not ready to give up on the Saints, especially since we haven't seen them at their full potential without Michael Thomas. But this is why, even back into March, I think I tweeted something about it, but it was like, I thought the value was picking an NFC team. Like, I think I bet on the Rams and Cowboys, which again were stupid bets, but it was the value to pick a team in the NFC because I didn't want to mess with the Chiefs, still didn't want to mess with the Ravens at the time, and I still believe that as well. And now you can throw in the Steelers in there as well. But I think picking between this murky NFC East is how you're going to win value, because then at that point you're just getting the Super Bowl, and if you're playing the Chiefs, you're just hoping for one win, right? Like, so if you feel confident in one of those 4, maybe it's someone else other than those 4 teams, then I would look into future odds and see if you can get a really good value, because I think the NFC creates a lot of value.
Yeah, the same way it creates value is the same reason I can't pick one of these teams.
True.
Like, yeah. That's the problem is like, it's a great value. You're right with the Chiefs have it on lockdown, and even if they falter, you have probably the Ravens, and then now the Steelers kind of push themselves in there at the top. And then even as much as I'm talking up the Seahawks, I'd never put money on them to go through with that defense. So it's tough. Looking at where we're at, I want to knock out a few more games, and we're going to hit our midseason awards and a few special categories. But Dolphins beating the Rams, I mentioned earlier with the Rams keeping themselves their head above water, but it's strange to me. I don't know whether the Rams are good or bad, and it makes it that much harder because I don't know how bad a loss to the Dolphins is with Brian Flores getting them to play the way they're playing. You get Tua in there, but you look at their record, and like literally the Rams have beat the Bears, and then it's the NFC East. Like, those are the wins that have gotten them to a 5-3 record. And then losing to the Dolphins, losing to the 49ers, and losing to the Bills. Like, their 3 losses are the 3 teams that I have the hardest time gauging how tough that opponent is. 49ers so up and down. Bills, it depends on, you hit them early in the year. That Rams game was the exact moment where questions about can Josh Allen keep this MVP season on track? That's when it started. And then, Dolphins is one where I think we're all giving a lot of credit to Brian Flores, and nobody's wrong, but we got to remember that doesn't happen overnight. This is still a bad loss for the Rams. Like, there's just no way to cut it that fits as this is an okay thing for the Rams to have happen if they really think they can make a run this year. So with the Rams, how much is theirs is the limitations of Jared Goff? How much is the running back crew just can't keep them healthy? So you're just definitely a team that's better when they can do the play action, but harder to pull that off when your trio of running backs are just being flipped in and out of the game based on who's injured. What's really holding the Rams back right now? Because you'd expect with Aaron Donald on that defense, things should be pretty easy to put together and have a team that can compete with the top teams in the NFL.
Yeah, the Rams might be the hardest team to gauge. What's very concerning? Well, first of all, they should be the NFC East champion, right? Like, I mean, let's just
They're
go give them right there. Let's just give them that seed.
And
but no,
the Eagles go in.
Yeah, the concerning thing with them is what happened with this Dolphins game, and not exactly losing the Dolphins because it's playing a game in Miami. It's kind of weird, it's the Dolphins, and Dolphins deserve a ton of credit. It's the way it happened. The PFF guys on their podcast alluded to that it was basically Flores doing what the Patriots did in the Super Bowl. They ran a lot of cover zero blitz. And the idea was that, hey, Sean McVay had to counterpunch that to this year. That's what led to them having a little bit more success this year from the start. And then a team was able to just bring that back, the defensive game plan back, and the Rams had no answer for it. So I didn't necessarily watch a whole lot of the game, so I can't really speak to if that is a huge concern. But enough of them saying that, hey, that was concerning for them, it raises my alarms a little bit. So that's what would concern me if you were a Rams backer or you were a Rams fan in general, is a defense can just go back to what the Patriots did when this blueprint to stop Sean McVay's offense, when I thought that Sean McVay had a counterpunch to it, and it looked like he did for a while. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But yes, getting wins against the NFC East and the Bears doesn't exactly give us a lot of confidence if in these Rams you need to see something more against a better opponent. So I don't know. I'm not ready to give up on them completely yet because, again, that 7th seed of the postseason in general adds so much to it. I don't know who all will be rooting or going for that 7th spot, but I think there is reasons for concern with the Rams, and all comes back to that offense. I think their defense is actually really good. It's not just Aaron Donald; it's really good in general. So it comes back to Jared Goff and those limitations.
All right, so we're gonna jump into quick hits here real fast, and first one, we just mentioned we tried to sell the victory away to the Rams, but as it turns out, the NFL will not change those rules, and we're just kind of left with having to have one of those teams make the playoffs. Did the Eagles win the division with the win over the Cowboys?
No, it's the Washington football team. I've told you that. It's my prediction, right? No, maybe. I guess. I don't. Carson Wentz wasn't even good in that last game. Like, it was bad. So I don't know. I actually might. I mean, I would look into Washington winning the division odds this week. I think that's actually like a low key thing I would do because I think that they're not that far off. It's actually crazy that they gave up on Dwayne Haskins so early. It felt like let's just go for the tank. But they might not do that. They might have to win the division because they have no other choice. So if you made me pick one team, I think I'm actually going to back Washington.
All right, that's bold.
Yeah, I know this.
I think it's just the Eagles accidentally. I think that's the best pick for who wins the NFC East. And I didn't want to talk about it any more than just the idea that these teams are all losers right now, and that one win is pretty much it. And the conversation is still around, like, I don't know, they might make it as a 7-9 team. It might be so bad it's 6-10. I'm not holding my breath for them the NFC East winner to be any better than 5-11 at this point. Like until they prove otherwise, that's where I'm at. And at that point, then we might finally get the NFL to rethink having the divisional winners, at the very least, getting them home field advantage. Because if a 5-11 team is hosting another team in the playoffs, I think we know the system's broken. Not to transition that to any comparisons to any other broken systems that we might have in place in this country. But the point being, we'll move on to another topic since you had the Bucs as your top NFC team. I have this on my list here. Does the Bucs stock drop at all? Didn't mean for that to rhyme the way it did. When they have just this close win against a bad Giants team. I assume you're going to say no because you have the Bucs up on the top, and you were the one who had to bring up last week that Daniel Jones isn't as horrible as people think. He's just really bad. Is that what we saw play out in the Bucs-Giants game?
Well, yeah. I mean, Daniel Jones is still really bad. I want to make sure I reiterate that. I just didn't think he was terrible. That was the difference. Still bad enough that they should look at a quarterback in the draft if they're drafting in the top 2. But no, I don't hold anything against the Bucs in that, and maybe that's just my bias getting in because I've fully invested myself in the Bucs. But no, Mike, there was no Chris Godwin, and Tony Brown obviously wasn't there at that point yet either. I think it was just similar to what the Patriots looked at times last year, or actually mostly last year. It was Brady not being happy with the guys that he had around him. They weren't maybe running the routes that he wanted, or they weren't getting separation that he wanted, because you could see a frustrated Tom Brady in that Monday night game. And the reason why everybody's in on the Bucs, that is anyways, is because their defense is really good. And in a year where, hey, it doesn't look like there maybe is that many elite defensive options, Bucs are one of them. So I think that should give you the most confidence is that, hey, even when the offense isn't gelling like it had been at times, that they can still win that game. They can still pull out a Monday night game because of the way the defense played. I mean, Winfield made a nice play on that 2-point conversion. So I still have a lot of confidence in the Bucs, and I think them winning a game like that when they could have just let it get ugly for them. I think that speaks a lot of confidence than I have in this team because I think once you get Chris Godwin back in there and Tony Brown, we'll see what happens there. But, I mean, this team has a lot of weapons on offense.
It's weird to describe that game as the not ugly version of events for either team.
Yeah.
That was a very ugly game. It led to me attacking Daniel Jones more than I wanted to on Twitter. I blame Scott Chasen for that mostly. But once the arguments start going, then it's hard to back off because he's a very easy punching bag. But it is interesting to see Daniel Jones show you in one game both the reasons why the Giants picked him so high, really wanted him to be that quarterback, and there are plays where he matches that, and then immediately like plays where you're like, I know we shouldn't go to the argument of I could make that throw, just stupid people say, but some of those throws you're like, I'm pretty sure it's not that I would have completed the pass, but I would have thrown the same bad incompletion as him. That's where I'm willing to go with it. There are too many of those passes from Daniel Jones, and it wouldn't be so bad. I mean, we're seeing things like, Ben DiNucci get starts on the Cowboys. So we're seeing some pretty bad quarterback play, but it's rare to see somebody of that caliber, somebody like Daniel Jones who can make an out-of-this-world pass, within 3 plays, he's making one that's like, how are you on an NFL roster? And you don't see that too often. And not to keep beating on Kirk Cousins, but that's probably the next one that really fits that criteria of just there are those throws that could trick somebody. And apparently the only ones that got tricked were the Vikings, because even Washington, as bad as they are at managing a football team, weren't stupid enough to give him the money for it. But you see those plays, and you're like, I get it. But if you can't do that consistently enough, it doesn't matter. And that's why I made the one joke responding to Scott Chasen, which is, Danny Dimes, I think, is a perfect nickname because dimes have value, but really they're worthless. That's pretty much where Daniel Jones is. Like, there is a lot of talent there, but what does it mean if you're as inconsistent as he is? Maybe you'll get better, but the more games he plays and the more he continues to do this game after game, makes it hard to imagine him ever getting that out of his system. I'm done talking about Daniel Jones. That was supposed to be a quick hit, but instead I just kept punching because it's fun. Let's get to the midseason awards, which I love. Like, I come up with these ideas, and then I'm like, I write it down, I put it in the rundown, and then I spent no time thinking of my answers. So I just leave it on my guests to actually have good answers for these. But we'll start with an easy one. MVP right now, I think we probably have the same answer because there's only a few that really fit for this award right now. But midseason MVP, Shane, who do you got?
Yeah, it's the chalk answer. It's Russell Wilson. Nobody other than Tom Brady in 2007 has thrown more touchdown passes at this point in the season than he has. His defense is giving up a crap ton of points in yards, so it has to be all him. And the Seahawks yet are still one of the best teams in the NFC. So from an everything standpoint, his stats, the narrative, because no one has given Russell Wilson an MVP vote, and that's a big bit that's going on this year and entering this year. I think everybody wants to give Russell Wilson the MVP. Extremely bad. So the fact that he's playing well, his stats are there, the fact that his team is there in terms of record-wise, and it has a lot to do with him. And everyone just really wants to give Russell Wilson the MVP award. That's why he's minus 190 now as the MVP favorite, which is his best odds by far all year. So it's hard to imagine Russell Wilson not winning this, even though there's so much in the season left. Patrick Mahomes is the closest competition, I think, because he's insane. But I think everybody wants to give Russell Wilson the MVP really badly. And so as long as he doesn't have a couple terrible games the second half of the season, I think he should be the favorite to win it.
All right, this is too many points, and you're the Vegas guy. You're the one who's making sure you got the lines. Mm-hmm. Is that your answer? As that is the most likely scenario, or is that who you believe has been the best player through this point in the season?
Well, it's the most likely scenario. But
I want to know who you think is the MVP, not just who you'd put money on to try to win.
Yeah.
But this isn't about how other people feel. Mm-hmm. By looking at their record, what they've done, and if you care about narrative, if narrative to you means, okay, you've accomplished this in the face of, what people think you've been overlooked, this and that, and you come out and you deliver the way he has, he deserves the MVP. But do you believe that? Not just guessing how other people feel and vote, but who do you think has been the best player?
Well, Mahomes has been the best player this year. But Russell Wilson is still the MVP because it's not always, hey, the best player gets the MVP. Like, he is taking a bad Seahawks defense and still making this team one of the better teams in the NFL. They're going to have a legit shot at the number one seed in the NFC, which is a big point of this as well. And he's the best deep ball passer in the league, that's for sure. Like, he drops some dimes on these moonball deep shots. So I think Mahomes is still the best player in the NFL by far. But Russell Wilson is number two, unless you're throwing Aaron Donald in the mix, obviously. But Russell Wilson's number two.
Taking my points before I jump in. Like, I'm waiting for you to finish. Yeah. As soon as I'm about to hit one, you just steal my point. So thanks for that, Shane.
Go ahead.
So Aaron Donald is the answer. No, Patrick Mahomes is probably I want to say Patrick Mahomes. If you're doing the betting odds, you go Russell Wilson. The main thing for me is looking at their stats and trying to decide, because it's not just who is the better player, because I think we all know that Patrick Mahomes, not only do his stats look ridiculous, he's not even played elite to what Patrick Mahomes does. There have been games where he is deferred to the running game, where he didn't look good because the offensive line wasn't playing well. And then we still get this far in the season, and he's thrown 21 touchdowns and 1 interception. And you're like, wait, what? He's third or fourth in the league in passing yards right now. So you get to that situation, you're like, Patrick Mahomes could have done much better than that, and he's already putting out of this world numbers. So if you're going, who's the best? Yeah. Probably Patrick Mahomes. When I'm just staring at the stats, it's hard for me, because which one do you value more? What Russell Wilson has done with, worse supporting cast, if you can make that argument. He does have a lot of good receivers, and the Chiefs could have had DK Metcalf. I'm not going to let it go. Those numbers look really good, and having 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, is that more valuable, having that higher level of production in the TDs but being a little bit less efficient? Or is it the Patrick Mahomes 21 touchdowns, and it could be more, it could be less. He got 3 freebies as basically handoffs that were passing touchdowns this last week, but he also got 5 touchdowns in the game. And then there's been some times where Clyde's Edward-Helaire is running it in because Patrick Mahomes got him in position. So give or take a few of those touchdowns, but 21 is still really good to only be at one interception. The only seasons that compare to that, there's probably an Aaron Rodgers season and there's probably a couple Tom Brady seasons. But or I guess Nick Foles is sadly the only other one that fits into that category. But it's hard for me. Like, I'm a Chiefs fan, so I don't know how much is my bias wanting to lean on Patrick Mahomes, but I do value efficiency. And I think when you know the game of football and you know that only reason he doesn't have 26 touchdowns are partially because he just seemed bored for the first 3 games. If Patrick Mahomes had a reason to put him up, he would be able to compete with him in that way as well. So I think it's Russell Wilson. I think I would even pick Russell Wilson. And if we're going best player in the NFL, it's just Aaron Donald. He's the only one who's that much better than the next person at his position. So, I'd go with that. Now we'll go, defensive player of the year is just Aaron Donald. We can move to the next segment.
Yeah.
Coach of the year. This is a tough one because there's always the surprise team versus just a team that's playing elite that maybe weren't quite there last year. Who do you have as your coach of the year halfway through the season?
Well, let the record show this is tough to say, but it's Mike Tomlin right now. They're the undefeated team. They're supposedly maybe the number 1 team in a lot of people's power rankings, even though I wouldn't put them there. But, I mean, this team, first of all, this is almost retroactively giving Mike Tomlin a Coach of the Year award because last year he deserved a lot more credit for making that team somewhat competitive. Even without Big Ben. So now they go from that to, there's a lot of unknown with this offseason. You didn't know what you were getting out of Big Ben going into the year, and they are the last undefeated team. It's a historic start for the Steelers, who are a franchise that's insanely good. And Mike Tomlin himself is insanely good, constantly having, non-losing seasons as the head coach, and he doesn't have a Coach of the Year award, which seems crazy to believe. So I think Mike Tomlin right now is the pick, but Brian Flores of Miami Dolphins would be my runner-up choice. So
yeah, and that's probably where it's at, is either the person who's having a great season that the team. It's not a big surprise that the Steelers are there, but they are outperforming expectations and to the level of being a top team, undefeated team right now. The Brian Flores is all about getting a bad team to play above its stock. And Brian Flores, I think there's already a kind of push, at least in the NFL Twitter analytics community. There was a lot of positive conversations about Brian Flores even before this year. So now that's just it coming just full force with how the Dolphins are playing this year and able to actually win games. So Brian Flores, I wouldn't be mad either way, but you're right, with Mike Tomlin having not won it before, despite how good his career is. And then I think this was brought up, the lack of people saying how good he is at certain aspects of the game when you're talking about how he's moving defenders around and using them, the way they're using Minkah Fitzpatrick this year, the way they've decided to have TJ Watt roaming around. Those are things that if Bill Belichick did, they'd talk about nonstop on the broadcast, and Mike Tomlin isn't getting credit for it when he should be. And those type of things, doesn't mean you need to be the one who wins Coach of the Year when you're having the year like he is, but it would be good for him to start getting more recognition, considering how good he's been for this team, how often he gets Pittsburgh. We talked about it last year when Duck Dodges Hodges, or whatever the hell his name is starting games for you, and you're still able to win as many games as they did. That's a good sign. And sure, the Dolphins gifted them Minkah Fitzpatrick, but it still took Mike Tomlin to keep his team in a winning position despite Big Ben going down. And this year, he's showing you, yes, I've got this team together. We have people in the right position. I'm still, you worry about that lull like Andy Reid had towards the end of his tenure in Philly. Mike Tomlin's not having any of that, and he deserves more credit. I'd just give it to him. Brian Flores has some time. If he can prove himself next year, I'd rather him win it on a year where instead of taking a Dolphins team that he already kind of got back to a 5-11, 6-10 mark, if it's a year where he gets them to the playoffs, that would be a year where it's like, okay, reward Brian Flores for him pulling the Dolphins out of the mess that they've been for so long. But until then, just give it to Mike Tomlin. Rookie of the Year. I haven't even taken the time to figure out who's on the short list for this category.
Well, I think the short list is the co-favorites, the quarterbacks. And my pick right now is Justin Herbert. This is the one that I think is the most up in the air, though. My pick would be Justin Herbert. We talk about Russell Wilson's crazy stats on his deep ball. Justin Herbert has 9 touchdown passes that have traveled at least 15 yards, which ties Russell Wilson for the most in the league. So Justin Herbert, also from a narrative standpoint, is just playing much better than anybody anticipated going into this year. So I think he right now would be my pick. I think a lot of people have wanted Joe Burrow to be really good from the start. And maybe in the first handful of games, he was fine, but it was like, hey, they're also throwing the ball like 60,000 times a game. So like some of these numbers are a little bit inflated from that standpoint. Everybody likes to talk about how, Joe Burrow's running around for his life because the offensive line is really bad, but the Chargers offensive line is also a bottom 5 unit in the league. They both have pretty good weapons though to throw to. So I think it's honestly a coin flip at this standpoint, but right now I would lean Justin Herbert mostly based on the fact that I think nobody expected this. And I think narratives do tend to play a little bit into all these awards. So I would go with Justin Herbert right now.
All right, I'm going Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Elaire. Gotta stop myself from saying it wrong. I literally have to stop every time and remind myself how to say it correctly. But so high on the rushing yards list. It's really tough because, the same reasons you're talking about, Joe Burrow's stats kind of, maybe being a little inflated. You're taking candy from a baby when you're the running back for Patrick Mahomes. Particularly this year where I think the offensive line, all the damage they've taken, they've shown that they've kind of patched it up better in terms of run blocking than they necessarily have pass blocking. And so maybe his stats are not as impressive for that, but they're extremely impressive for a rookie. And then it really just comes down to how much, since we've kind of devalued what a running back is, and we know that quarterbacks matter more. Do we do that same thing with rookies? I feel like this is the only time Edwards-Helaire has a chance of winning an award, minus whatever running back award, which is that real? Does that ever happen? No, there's a slim chance somebody might give you an offensive player of the year award.
Yeah.
Probably in a year where they give the MVP to a quarterback, as if I guess they play on different sides of the ball. So yeah, of course. So I'd give him the Rookie of the Year. I think he deserves it. And yeah, a similar situation to Brian Flores. I'll let Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow prove it. Win a real award a couple years from now. How about that? So I'm going to give it to my guy. There might be some bias involved. But,
I think there's a lot of bias in that.
His stats are really good.
I'm aware. I'm just saying I think there was a lot of bias. I mean, if I would be with you if Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow weren't actually playing well. Like if they were just playing like normal rookies, but both of them are playing exceptionally well, I think.
Yeah, and once again, I wouldn't be mad either way. I'm just saying, don't pretend like this is a long shot. Don't pretend like I'm being a homer.
No, I'm not. Yeah,
had a really good year. I don't even remember what I had on the rest of the list for ones we do. I know let's get into the weird ones real fast, so we can get out of here real quick. We'll start with just what were your best, and then we'll go worst after that. What was your best preseason prediction that's held up so far this year?
Well, I went ahead and listed multiple options because I thought we were going to have another person here, and I didn't know which ones would be taken away. But I'll just list out, a couple of them, I guess. Russell Wilson winning MVP award was my preseason take, as I sent the screenshot to you to prove it. And then I had both the Seahawks and Steelers winning their respective divisions, even though they were not the betting favorite in their division to win that division. And I had them both as the number 2 seed in their respective conferences, AFC and NFC. So I think those were probably my best takes because I don't know. They weren't the favorite. And if you listen to all these preseason podcasts, everyone had the same division winners between, they thought the Ravens were going to win or they had thought the 49ers were going to win. So I would put those as my best takes. And I still actually believe that those things are going to pan out. I would say that they're more likely to pan out. So Russell Wilson, as we mentioned earlier, is the betting favorite to win MVP. And although the Ravens could get the Steelers in the rematch right now, you would have to say the Steelers are the favorite to win the AFC North. The Seahawks winning the NFC West actually might be I'm most nervous about. Even though we both seem to be high on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks in general, that's a really good division, and who knows what's going to happen in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I do want to say with your MVP take, you definitely said that like you were picking Phillip Rivers to win. Like it was like this long shot bet. I needed to prove it. I needed to show you that I picked this before the season started. No, I just want to give you shit there. But
I mean, Russell Wilson was what, third or fourth on the MVP odds list before the season. I mean, he was definitely behind Lamar and Mahomes. I would guess maybe Dak or Kyler Murray were at least in the mix, and he was somewhat around that range.
Yeah, I think for me, especially going into a year, I'd pick based on narrative. And, you know, I would have gone Russell Wilson just because of all of the conversation about not having a single MVP vote, you know, through his career. But I think for mine, it's a different quarterback that, you know, it's not even going to happen. But I still feel like just, you know, a big divide between people who were for Josh Allen and against Josh Allen. And just, you know, what's funny is I wasn't even picking for him to truly be an MVP. It was just like, I know that freaking floor is so high that I can't understand why anybody that he would fall down in fantasy drafts as far as he did. The value there, I think that one should be obvious, even if you can argue and you're not sure how good he is. And so much of their you know, ability is based on their ability to run, and they get injured, and particularly with Josh Allen, where he is inaccurate. The way people tried to talk about Lamar Jackson. Like Josh Allen actually has those problems when he was entering the NFL. So those are issues, but they shouldn't be for fantasy. And he was even dropping in fantasy. So I think there needed to be a reevaluation, particularly with what they added to that offense. I felt like they'd do good, but that was definitely you were on one side or the other. And I felt like they would do well, and that's even if the Patriots were able to keep things together. They haven't, and the Bills are right there out in front right now. So I'll put that on the list, and that's really bad. I don't think I had any other really good preseason predictions, but I'm trying to think if I had any really terrible ones. I think the only one where it wasn't preseason, it was just as Christian McCaffrey got injured. I went pretty hard on the fact that they were going to be really bad once Mike Davis wasn't out there, and so I had apologized to Mike Davis and to Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, I don't think there was a lot of big ones this year because mostly I didn't have any you know, big picks. I just expected Chiefs to come back in. I expected this to be a year where with COVID, you might expect more uncertainty, but I expected it more to be like it would look a lot like last year because you don't have the opportunities to make changes and really just whichever teams came back with more consistency would do better. That's been mostly accurate. I think, you know, like Chiefs are still right where we expected them to be, but then you have teams like, all right, Falcons have everybody back, and that's just been a shit show. So there's a few teams where it's kind of been 50-50 where you expect having, all right, I got my quarterbacks, I got my key skill players. We should be able to you know, start the season without a hitch, and some slow starts from some of those teams. What was the other category that we were supposed to do?
So worst take. Did I say mine, or do you want me to say mine?
I don't know. Say yours.
Definitely picking the Cowboys to win the division like a sucker. But I also picked two NFC East teams to make playoffs. As you kind of mentioned that already. But yeah, I honestly, even at the time, did not believe that I should pick the Cowboys to win the NFC East. I thought it was crazy that everybody was like, all right, this is the Chiefs version of the NFC East. Or NFC, sorry. And so I was like, okay, that's being a little bit too optimistic about this Cowboys offense. Which I guess they were pretty good, but the defense was really bad when Dak was in the game. So yeah, that still was my worst take because I felt like a sucker at the time, and I feel like even more of a sucker now. So
that's fair. All right. I didn't have any bad takes because I'm always right.
That's true.
So I think we'll just try to do, is there any other category? Because I didn't do a full list of awards, but is there anything else that you feel like mid-season, you know, stands out? Because, I mean, it could be a weird award like, you know, best worst take, or it could just be one of the other categories that we, you know, didn't point to, whether that's wide receiver, whether it's, you know, anything else about the NFL awards that I just don't care about.
Not that I can think of. I mean, we can just jump into the best move and worst move of the offseason. Is that what you wanted to do next, or?
We can do that, and then I don't know if we'll have time. I was going to do like just rapid fire bets down the line. But we'll do best worst move. Mine's easy because my best and the worst are the same, and it's the best move. Letting Phillip Rivers leave the Chargers. Worst move. Colts picking up Phillip Rivers. And I know that you can look at the stats. You can see the Colts at 5-2 and decide that was a good move. But man, it's hard to watch them and not think your best case scenario is Phillip Rivers just throwing the game away at the wrong time. And now he's not even as good as he was before when he did that in his prime. Now you got old Phillip Rivers doing it. And yeah, your alternatives could be another, Jacoby Brissett year where you're, barely able to make the playoffs. But I don't know how much value Phillip Rivers really added. And then on the flip side, I know 100% best move, letting him go where, okay, maybe he's going to helm a Colts team that makes the playoffs. But wherever the Chargers finish up, it was better to make the move, get Justin Herbert in there, and see what he can do. So that's my pick for best and worst move.
No, I like that. That and is a really easy way to do that as well. I like that a lot. I might be kind of just basic, but the best move I think in the offseason was the Bucs getting Tom Brady. They went from having to deal with that Jameis Winston experience, whether you didn't know if you were going to be up by 30 or losing by 30, to now you're one of the Super Bowl favorites. So I think that's obviously the best move. And it goes back to kind of what we were referring to earlier. There was this whole idea because of the COVID offseason that teams with continuity were going to be good. Well, the Bucs got a whole new different quarterback, which means they had a different offense in general. And look at them, 8 weeks in the season. Now, granted, they had got Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. But I think that was speaking to what I believed in the early entering the year was that there was still going to be some craziness going on in the NFL because that's how the NFL is every year. So I think that's easily the best move. The worst move, I think, is obviously the Hopkins, trading away Hopkins and then getting yourself fired less than 2 months later. But because I think
– So it depends on if you're looking from a team perspective or from a GM perspective. That's a bad GM move. In terms of a team, that was great for the Texans at the end of the day. I know it sucks because you lost Hopkins, but he finally went too far. You can get rid of Bill O'Brien. So I think at the end of the day, it's a positive move for the team, bad move from a GM because obviously that's the worst move you can make. Maybe,
but trading away a guy who could be argued as the best receiver in the NFL when you had him paired with the at least top 5, 6 quarterback in the NFL? I don't know.
I said on the first podcast when we talked about this, basically the moment that Bill O'Brien brings that to the owner, you fire Bill O'Brien. That's like whatever the hell happened with John Dorsey, whatever the straw was that broke the camel's back, like that's the moment for the Texans. It's like, and it will endear you to your players if you have a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Like, I don't think it gets you like a hometown discount, but that definitely makes him less likely to want to leave in free agency down the road when he knows his owner has his back over a really dumb coach GM. Hey, I'm going to send this guy. I don't care if we don't get anything for him. I don't care if it makes our team worse. I don't want to deal with his attitude. He's gone. Like, you make that move as an owner, getting rid of him and siding with the player, you've gained that trust of DeAndre Hopkins, which, as it turns out, pretty good player to have on your side. So I would have fired Bill O'Brien that day. The moment he walks in with that offer, no, actually, we'll just get rid of you. That's a better plan for us.
And because that was such a bad move when it happened, everyone knew that when it happened, it was a bad move. I felt like that was a terrible answer. So I went ahead and listed another one because I thought someone else would steal that. I actually thought the worst move other than that, though, was the Bears giving up a draft pick and agreeing to pay Nick Foles $24 million over the next 3 seasons, only for him to look as bad as everybody predicted, basically. Like this, and the reason why it gets deeper than that. The reason why it's even a worse move is now the Bears are somewhat competitive. They're frisky, and they might be in this QB purgatory that you don't want to be in. Like they could be 8-8, 9-7 at the end of the year, and all of a sudden you don't have a realistic shot at landing one of the elite young quarterback prospects. So this is why it's even worse move because now you're not only owing money to a guy like Nick Foles who objectively isn't good, and now it removes you from the chance to draft a high quarterback because they've already won too many games, I think. So I think from all standpoints that it was a bad move.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about how do you get away from Mitch Trubisky, like the answer isn't Nick Foles because like you needed to make that tough move to be like, we gotta pull the cord. We gotta end this because it's not gonna work. Let's go to another bad quarterback situation. Like that's a bad transition, and that makes Nick Foles might be the worst offseason move 2 years running. So
True.
like that's not a good thing for a Super Bowl winning quarterback to be in. But we'll always remember when he beat the Patriots. That's all that really matters. Let's just start running down, and we want to real quick in a couple minutes get you out of here. But we'll just run down the list of bets. This won't be our actual bets that we're going to count up and figure out next week. This is more advice for our listeners. But we'll start with I guess I just have the Panthers. Chiefs. What's the Thursday night game tonight? It's the
49ers Packers. I don't have the list of spreads in front of me. Do you?
I have a list of spreads. I do not have 49ers Packers for some reason. But we'll start with Chiefs Panthers.
Okay.
-11 for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs every week, probably. I know I tried to talk up the Panthers a little bit last week, but that didn't work out. So, yeah, I'm going to back the Chiefs. I don't care. They're the best team in the NFL for a reason.
I'm going to back the Panthers because I feel like anytime I can pick against the Chiefs, but it's still like they win by 7, I'm like, oh, they didn't beat the spread, but I just want to bet and my team won. I love to play both sides there. Saints Buccaneers. Buccaneers are -4.5.
Yeah. Wow. That number's a little bit lower than I thought because I think I looked at it earlier and it was closer to like 5 or 6, but maybe that's right.
It's also ESPN, so it could just be totally off. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to real betting sites right now.
Yeah. Well, I guess if it's that number, then I would take the Bucs. I think if it was closer to the 6 range, I might take the Saints. But that's close. 4.5 is very close. I don't think there's really value on either side.
It's a home game for the Buccaneers. I'll take them, even though I have to after I disrespected the Saints earlier. For my pick to hold up. 49ers Packers. Packers are -7.
-7? Yeah, then in that situation, I'm going 49ers. I know in my CBS pick'em, for some reason, the Packers are like 1.5 or 2.5 point favorites, and I don't understand why. And so I took the Packers in that situation, but that's a lot of points. And the Packers, it's not like the 49ers defense is completely banged up. So I think they could still create some problems for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, until I know Aaron Jones is healthy and until they have that full stable of skilled players, I just wouldn't pick the Packers to be able to cover that many points. And the 49ers have had enough good games that even though they have their flaws, I'll go with the 49ers on that one. Seahawks, Bills. Seahawks are -3.
Yeah, I know the running joke is the Seahawks don't play normal games, but that seems like that's too low. The Bills' run defense is terrible. And even if you are a Josh Allen believer, I don't think I would trust him in this situation. I would lay the 3 points, take the Seahawks.
All right, this is going to be our only real bet. This is the Flay of Fish bet of the week. I'm taking the Bills on this one. Got to split on one of these. Colts, Ravens. Ravens are -2.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I think the Ravens aren't really getting that much respect in this situation. And yeah, I don't like to take the bounce back situation from a Steelers game because it takes a lot in a rivalry game like that from the Ravens. But I think 2.5 points is not nearly enough. So I will lay it. The Ravens win by at least field goal for sure.
All right, we're going to do rapid fire. Just name the answer and we'll move on. We don't need explanations. I'm going to take the Ravens as well in that one. But Texans, Jaguars, -6.5 for the Texans.
I guess the Texans. I don't feel great.
I'll take the Jags. Why not? We got Bears, Titans, and the Titans are -6.
Bears. That's a lot of points. I'll take the Bears +6.
I'm going to take the Titans. I hate Nick Foles. Giants, Washington. You got the Washington football team -2.5.
Let's go, Washington. That's my team. They're in. Let's go.
I'm going to go Danny Dimes. I have to be nice to him this week. Lions, Vikings. That one doesn't even have a line, so we'll just do even odds. Who do you think wins the game?
Vikings. The Lions may not have Matt Stafford, right?
It's possible. He's supposed to be on the COVID list. Vikings. Vikings just had a big win against the Packers, so that means I'm picking the Lions. No way Vikings put it together 2 weeks in a row. Broncos, Falcons. Falcons -4.
Broncos +4.
I'll take the Falcons. Raiders, Chargers, even.
Raiders.
I'll take the Chargers. Steelers, Cowboys. Steelers are -14. Panthers, Steelers.
I guess the Steelers. I don't feel great about that one.
Dolphins, Cardinals. Cardinals -4.5.
Dolphins for sure.
I'll take Dolphins. Patriots, Jets. Patriots are -7.
Jets +7. I get in trouble by picking the Jets every week, though. I do. I have a this is a guilty pleasure of mine.
All right, this is our spicy chicken nuggets. I'll take the Patriots on this one. That's all we have. I'm going to get Shane out of here. He's got some work to do. But that's all we have for this episode of Too Many Points on the Tell Me More podcast. Later, folks. Once I take 10 seconds to finally shut this off.